Hi, my name is Shakeri, and here I'm going to be presenting our work, Sensing Their Presence, How Emerging Adults and Their Parents Connect After Moving Apart. This work was done in the Connections Lab at the School of Interactive Arts and Technology at Simon Fraser University. When emerging adults move out of their parents' homes for the first time, the relationship between them and their parents evolves. Emerging adults are adults who are beginning to gain independence from their parents. They no longer see each other every day, and they need to implicitly or explicitly renegotiate their independence from one another. Often the process of moving out is triggered by a need to move out for college or to start a job away from home, in some cases requiring the emerging adult to move to a location far from home. Feeling co-present over distance after moving apart is a challenge. In this work, we specifically discuss passive co-presence, which is a sense of togetherness that is felt through sensing each other's presence without actively engaging with one another. For example, when co-located with family, we may hear them walking down the stairs or see them in our peripheral vision, creating a subtle sense of togetherness. Rather than relying on action, passive co-presence is based on sensing the presence of a family member. In this work, we break down the experience of sensing presence into the way it's experienced through each of the 5 senses, including sight, sound, smell, touch, and taste. We set out to answer the following research questions. First, what are the similarities and differences in the perspectives of parents and emerging adults towards technology-supported connection? And secondly, how might we design technologies for the home that support passive connections between emerging adults and their parents over distance? We recruited 32 participants in parent-child pairs, with 16 emerging adults between the ages of 18 and 27, and 16 parents between the ages of 39 and 64. We conducted a co-design study that included interviews, an in-home activity to collect personal reflections on connecting through the senses, and group design sessions to generate speculative technology designs for connection. After the initial interview on individuals' perspectives on togetherness, participants completed an in-home activity over 5 days. Once we had compiled all of the responses from the initial interviews and in-home activities, we summarized the findings based on the 5 senses. We used these findings to guide brainstorming and co-design sessions with the participants, focusing on challenges that arose in the responses. Through a series of guided activities, the groups then brainstormed about potential solutions to these problem areas, and we encouraged them to think about futuristic or even seemingly implausible ideas. Through this study, we found a number of differences in perspectives, which we describe in depth in the paper. One difference was that the emerging adults and their parents had somewhat different goals when connecting with one another. For emerging adults, the goal was often to reconnect with a sense of home and family, as leaving their families for the first time was very emotional for some, as we can see in this photo shared by P16. In the co-design sessions, it became apparent that the emerging adults designed the communication technologies differently between the 2 homes. When a hypothetical device required an instance in the parents' home and an instance in the emerging adult's home, they valued having the parents' device being grounded in the home and having portable and flexible devices on their own side. For parents, this asymmetry existed as well, with their design ideas portraying a desire to share in the new experiences that the emerging adults were going through, often in new parts of the world or in the new stage of their lives generally. For example, we can see in this photo shared by P3 that they created a family group chat to share in the experiences of their son living in a new country. Throughout the various components of the study, we explored how passive co-presence was experienced through each of the 5 senses. When emerging adults and their parents described how they connected through sounds when they lived together, they mainly described ambient or environmental sounds. These sounds mainly centered on being peripherally aware of their activities. Other ambient sounds that created a sense of connection included sounds that were specific to the environment surrounding the home. Participants additionally explained that sounds that were strongly linked with memories of one another would sometimes trigger them to reach out and connect. For example, in this photo shared by EA8, we see that she would remember her family when playing music that they listened to together. For the sense of sight, emerging adults and their parents felt a sense of togetherness when sharing activities and experiences with one another. They recalled co-watching experiences, like watching movies or shows together, playing video and board games together, and sharing outdoor visual experiences like sightseeing. Other sight-based experiences of togetherness were based on seeing traces of the other person after the children moved out. For the parents, this included things like the emerging adults left behind belongings, artwork, and left behind pets. Other traces of emerging adults were based on their habits. For example, P1 explained that her daughter used to leave cabinet doors ajar, and thus, seeing an open cabinet was a reminder of her daughter. The pair is described feeling connected to one another through ambient smellscapes when they lived together. Smells that especially created a sense of connection between parents and emerging adults included smells of specific foods, personal products, and for the emerging adults, the smell of their parents' home. Other smells that were tied with specific memories included holiday-related smells and the smell of candle smoke, which was reminiscent of birthdays, as we see in this photo shared by P16. Ambient smells were described as creating a sense of connection in co-located homes, and these passive feelings of connection sometimes led to active interactions. Parents and emerging adults both felt that they missed comforting touches. Emerging adults needed comforting touches from their parents when they were dealing with negative emotions, and parents noted feeling a sense of closeness and conveying love and security through touch. Touch also created a sense of connection through caring acts. P3 shared this photo to explain that knitting a sweater for her son made her feel connected. Touch was one of the forms of connection that both sides found the most challenging to lose. They attempted to recreate feelings of closeness by touch by proxy, which included touching left-behind items, gifts, and souvenirs. For many pairs, shared family routines formed the basis of their daily interactions when living together. These rituals were centered around food, whether through shared dinners, breakfasts, or afternoon tea or coffee. As the emerging adults had moved out and were living independently for the first time, many were cooking for themselves for the first time as well. Because of this, one of the forms of active togetherness that the pairs shared was recipe sharing and sharing cooking knowledge. This included sharing and collecting family recipes or cultural recipes, which the emerging adults would then attempt to replicate. An experience that pairs felt missing after moving apart was cooking together. Synthesizing these findings, we arrived at a set of considerations for future design. These include considering the need for control and privacy, considering sharing multisensory environmental ambience, and considering supporting nostalgia and comfort. The need for control and privacy is important for any demographic, but we highlight it here due to the conflict of needs between the emerging adults and their parents. Some of the emerging adults were living with roommates, which introduces an additional reason to emphasize non-invasive design when connecting emerging adults and their parents. Designers could consider avoiding collecting any sensor data in the shared spaces of the emerging adults' homes. Even in cases where the emerging adults lived alone, designers could ensure that their designs do not capture and display information that could be sensitive or private. For example, we found that some emerging adults wanted to maintain privacy about when they were at home or away or when they had guests over. Alongside this shift towards a greater need for privacy for the emerging adults, we observed an increased need for connection in many of the parents, with some parents being very worried about their children's well-being. The desire to share the ambiance of the home is especially important for this relationship type, as emerging adults highlighted the desire to connect with comfort and home when connecting with their parents. We speculate that future designers could replicate this by combining multiple sensory streams over distance. Combining multiple senses can create an amalgamation of the individual challenges of each sense and can additionally create new challenges. The senses of sight and sound both have the capacity to communicate information about the details of activities and people in the homes. When combined together, the challenge with privacy between the homes is more pronounced. For the senses of smell and touch, on the other hand, having the additional context and clarification from the other senses can actually be beneficial, as they can provide insight into the origin of the scent or tactile signal. The third design consideration we propose is supporting nostalgia and comfort. Based on our study findings, we recommend that designers make use of sensory triggers to create these passive feelings of co-presence over distance. For these sensory triggers to provoke reminiscence passively, an element of serendipity and unexpectedness can be beneficial, as being unexpected brings the signal closer to the foreground of attention, while additionally allowing it to be passive. Designers can also leverage left-behinds as proxies for togetherness by enhancing them with sensing or display properties, or otherwise integrating them into designs. We recognize that participants who were likely to sign up for this study were those who had a good enough relationship with one another to sign up as a pair. Many emerging adult-parent relationships would certainly not benefit from connecting as we discuss in this work. In summary, we extend the field of emerging adult-parent communication research by diving deeper into the experiences and differences in their needs, challenges, and behaviors. We explored how feelings of connection and togetherness are perceived through each of the 5 senses and arrived at a set of considerations for future design. Thank you.